China and the European Union have agreed on a complete lifting of restrictions on mutual exchanges as the two sides mark 50 years of diplomatic relations. Beijing extending a warm welcome to visits by top EU leaders at a time that it deems appropriate.
中方欢迎欧洲理事会主席科斯塔、欧盟委员会主席冯德莱恩适时联袂来华举行新一次中欧领导人会晤。 双方还将举行战略、经贸、绿色、数字等高层对话。
And China looking to present itself as a reliable partner in a global trade landscape upended by tariffs from Washington. Brussels and Beijing agreeing last month to look into setting minimum prices on electric vehicles, signaling intention to ease strained ties after the bloc imposed tariffs of as much as 45.3% on Chinese EV imports last year. And CNA's Yew Guan with more on how Mr. Trump's tariffs could drive China and the EU closer together.
You could say both sides now have a common enemy, or shall we say more politically correctly, a challenge, a common challenge, the US President Donald Trump's tariffs. And both sides are looking at each other for diplomatic support, as well as potential alternative markets for goods originally bound for the US. You can see that outlook in what President Xi said today. The Chinese president called on China and EU to safeguard fairness and justice and to oppose unilateral bullying. Of course, he didn't name names, but we all know what he's referring to. He also said that China is ready to work with the European Council and the European Commission to deepen strategic communication and enhance understanding, as well as mutual trust, and to properly handle friction and differences.
Ross Cullen joins us from Paris. Ross, we heard there, our correspondent from China, the rhetoric very warm between the EU and Beijing. Also moves to lift restrictions that we've seen since the last few years on mutual exchanges. Are these moves sustainable, given there are very real differences between Beijing and Brussels?
Yeah, there are very real differences, and we have seen some cautious language from Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. But overall, it does seem that, as your correspondent was just mentioning in terms of the view from China, that there is a chance for a reset or an opportunity for a realignment of relations in view of the imposition and then the current pause of those reciprocal tariffs by the United States on pretty much every country in the world, mentioning that there are common challenges, perhaps where there are further opportunities to work together between Beijing and Brussels. We know that Xi Jinping has been saying in this letter to EU leaders that a healthy, stable China-EU ties are not only promoting mutual achievements, but also illuminating the world. In the couple of days after Donald Trump announced those reciprocal tariffs, Ursula von der Leyen had a phone call with Li Qiang, the Chinese Premier, and in that she stressed that she thought it was the responsibility of both Brussels and Beijing to promote a free and fair trading system founded on a level playing field. So certainly we are seeing the opportunity for closer ties, although there have been some tricky moments in recent history. We know that the EU approved tariffs on China-made electric vehicles, and then last October there was a temporary imposition by China of retaliatory measures on EU alcohol, specifically targeting brandy. Of course, that hit countries like France hard.
But Ross, nonetheless, there's a reach out from Brussels to Beijing, given their concerns. They do not want a two-front trade war. So given what's happening in Washington, better that ties with Beijing are easier. And what has the EU done to prepare itself for tariffs which would go even higher from Washington?
Yes, there is a chance to work together, and we know that the European Union's Chamber of Commerce in China has also been speaking in the last couple of days, saying that the, quote, recent escalation of tariffs and trade measures between the United States And China has far-reaching implications for all foreign companies, especially in China, saying that the trade tariffs have increased uncertainty. We know that the EU has suspended for now its countermeasures that it had wanted to respond to the United States' import taxes on steel. It says it reserves the right to respond with further retaliatory measures if it chooses to do so, if the United States chooses to end that pause and reimpose the previously announced tariffs. There was a possibility of new import taxes on American whiskey. When President Trump learnt of that, he said, well, I would respond with a 200% rate on import taxes for EU alcoholic products, notably wine and champagne. Again, a major export market for France. The top trade commissioner for the European Union is Maroš Šefčovič. He's been speaking with Washington regularly to try to encourage dialogue between the two sides. And we can listen in now to a little bit more of what Mr. Šefčovič has had to say.
So the EU has made clear that we are ready to discuss and we are ready to find mutually beneficial solutions respecting our interest and regulatory autonomy. We now need the US to show its readiness to make progress towards a fair and balanced solution. And I have already shared the approach with my US counterparts as a basis for further engagement. We are fully engaged in discussion with the US as a negotiated solution remains our clear and preferred outcome.
So on this 50-year anniversary of ties between Brussels and Beijing, the next major step could well be that summit that we expect in the second half of July, with potentially the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, there present in Beijing to meet President Xi. Wei Su?
Thanks for that. Ross Cullen there reporting live from Paris.